Everybody, thank you for coming this morning. I think this morning primarily is to talk about the performance of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force over the last year in comparison to previous years, and just to give you some updates around that, and then to take some questions really from yourselves in areas that you have specific interest in. And I'll, in order to give you the sort of update around the force performance over the last year, we'll move through the panel, allowing my senior managers to give you those updates. And after that, you can certainly ask us any questions you want. First of all, for myself, I think 2013 was certainly another building year in terms of moving the organisation forward around modernisation, improving our performance, developing our staff, and ensuring the safety of the community and building their trust and confidence in their police service. I'd like to start off by giving you some the figures for 2013. We saw a reduction in reported crime of 247 crimes compared to 2012. That's a reduction of 14% in reported crime. We saw an increase in detected crime from 2012 from 41% to 44%. So in other words, our detection rate had improved for 2013 compared to 2012. Taking some of the detail around that, in terms of burglary dwelling, we saw a decrease in burglary dwelling in 2013 from 279 crimes in 2012 to 133 reported burglary dwellings in 2013. That's a reduction of 30% in burglary dwelling. However, we do know that in terms of burglary other than dwelling, that's our vessels, our business premises, and those types of premises, we still have continued to see burglaries in those areas. But when we look at burglary overall, we've seen a 30%, as I said, reduction in burglary overall. So certainly tackling the property crime which affects our community the most around dwelling burglary, we've had a quite a successful year in relation to that. Violent crime, again, another area that the community is concerned about. We've seen a slight decrease in 2013 from 375 crimes reported in 2012 to 336 crimes in 2013. But what we have seen is an increase of that violent crime, an increase in domestic violence reported, which accounts for about 43% of all violent crime reported to the RVIPF. Now that tells us that people are more encouraged to come forward, report their domestic violence, be victims of domestic violence, and that our policy that we introduced 2 years ago is starting to embed in terms of positive action, separating the parties, charging and working with the DPP in prosecuting those offenders where the victims wish to go to court, and where victims don't, ensuring that the offender is cautioned and is made aware of their behaviour. Certainly working with social development, we increased our family juvenile unit with the increase of the reports, and this year we are introducing a new vulnerable victim witness suite, which is not going to be based at the police station, because again we recognise, speaking to our victims of domestic violence, sexual offences, etc., they need somewhere safe and secure where they can be spoken to, provide their statements without having to go through the rigours of going to Road Town Police Station. So we're certainly going to be introducing that this year again, and linking that to the court again to allow us to give video evidence for our vulnerable victims of crime. In regard to the restructuring of the force, a lot of you would have seen last year's strategic plan. We're continuing to roll that on this year, focusing very much around the professional service standards of the force. This year we are reintroducing, we've had it before, but we're updating it, our Police Code of Ethics to run alongside our new professional conduct policy, which Mr. James is taking forward. We've been consulting with the Ombudsman, Complaints Ombudsman, in terms of taking that forward, the Attorney General's Office, the Police Service Commission. So more focus around accountability of officers, more clarity on their role, what is expected of them. And certainly that's been ongoing work over the last 2 years, as you can see by some of the crime reduction, some of the improvements in detection, some of the visible patrols that we're now starting to introduce, more focus in terms of accountability at middle management level in terms of delivering performance. Other areas that we will be looking to introduce this year is around more focus around the victim witness care, and on that basis we're going to be introducing victim witness policy, working with the other agencies in terms of DPP's office, Director of Public Prosecutions, and our other agencies to look at how we can support our victims of witness care. In terms of the upper ranks within the force, my managers, senior managers, certainly a lot more confidence in their skills. Again, we've spent the last 3 years, investing a lot of training from constable level upwards. All the constables and sergeants have had investigative training in looking at their skills, dealing with victims, dealing with reports of crime. We've had inspectors, chief inspector training at middle management rank in relation to critical incident management, command management training. Mr. James last year went away on the senior management course at Bramshill. So a lot more focus around taking leadership, making decisions, and taking responsibility at the level of your rank within the organisation. The ambition is to devolve responsibility to the lowest level, so officers take responsibility for their decisions and are empowered to do so. Running alongside that, again, Mr. James will talk about it shortly, is our modernisation programme to give the officers the not just the skills, but the capability and the capacity to take on those new roles. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Mr. James now, just to talk about the modernisation of the force and some of the other work that we've done and are doing.
Technology, key to advancing security. The Royal Vigilance Police Force is advancing security in the territory through the introduction of a number of key initiatives. We have established a control room at the Road Tongue Police Station, and we have installed a number of CCTV cameras at strategic locations within Tortola. This will assist with the prevention of crime, the identification of offenders, and increase our opportunities overall to solve more crimes. Other areas that we are improving on, we have installed GPS tracking systems in all of our vehicles, operational vehicles, frontline, and that's linked to our control room. This will help to reduce our response time, monitor the performance of our officers, review their patrol patterns, and in time of emergency, we'll be able to locate our vehicles in the case of anything. Body-worn cameras are another technology that we are reducing for officers, especially our firearms officers and other key frontline officers. This will reduce unjustified complaints. It will also improve our professionalism and enhance our efficiency in handling complaints like domestic violence, rapes, and assaults. We have invested a significant sum in new radios to improve on our communications with our patrol officers, response cars, and our ability to communicate with multiple units all at the same time. So we've also invested in new vests for the safety of our officers. So we've invested in some stab-proof and bulletproof vests. Soon, all our officers on patrol duty will be wearing their bulletproof vest because they'll be all equipped. Another area is mobile working, the use of the advancement in modern technology to maximize the time officers spend on front line, reducing their need to return to the station. Many more tasks will be able to complete without returning to the station. The officers in the field will be able to update reports, check registration, license of vehicles, drivers, details, all from their cars without returning to the station. We'll be installing a number of computers in our operational vehicles to improve in this area. Demand on our police service is increasing. There are greater demands on our limited resources of the force. We have operational duties or core policing duties. However, there are a number of other demands on our resources yearly: High Court, Oddlies, various events like festival, music fest, horse racing, and other events. The force is in the process of designing a police plan for Tortola to best use our human resources. Our intention is to divide our resources into two main teams, which is our neighborhood policing team and our response policing. This should make available more officers to address the greatest demand, resulting in more high visibility of officers on the front line. We are also seeking to build strengths with our security firms. The Royal Vigilance Police Force is unable to provide all the security services in the territory, and therefore there's a need for us to work in partnership with the companies that provide such services in the territory. However, companies need to be in compliance with the Private Security Industry Act, number 10 of 2007. The companies had an extended period to bring their operations in conformity with the Act. And we are seeking to establish things like a code of conduct and regulations for these companies. We will work closely with the Trade Department and the private security services providers to ensure the requirements of the law are met and that the companies are better equipped to work in partnership with the Royal Vigilance Police Force.
Thank you, Albert. I'd like now to introduce Detective Superintendent Alexis Charles, head of the Crime Division.
The Commissioner of Police would have given an overview of violent crimes reported in the territory during 2013. I would now seek to focus on homicides that were recorded. As you know, we only recorded one homicide during the period, that being the murder of Colonel Melbourne Francis in May, and that matter remains under active investigation, and the family is being kept abreast of our progress of that particular investigation. Over the last 5 years, covering the period 2009 to 2013, we have recorded 18 homicides here in the British Virgin Islands. And of that number, 15 have been cleared up, which translates into a clear-up rate of 83.33%. And if we were to go further back to the beginning of the millennium, our major crime homicide list, that is from 2000 to 2013, has a total of 50 homicides, with 32 being cleared up. And that again translates into a clear-up rate of 64%. It is important to note here that not every clearance results in a court case, and we would see how that is demonstrated as I progress. Whilst we are in a sense witnessing an increase in our clear-up rate, we are well aware that a number of unsolved cases still remain on our books. All unsolved cases remain open, and while it is difficult to focus on the more historic cases because of current events, we as an organization remain committed to set aside resources to focus on all our open cases. During the course of this calendar year, the unsolved cases will be reviewed on their merits. We remain committed to bring offenders to justice whenever the evidence is present to satisfy the Director of Public Prosecutions, and this has been demonstrated in the last 18 months, and I will cite two particular instances. The 2006 murder of Vere Brown Jr., where a warrant of arrest was obtained for an individual who is currently serving a life sentence for murder in the United States Virgin Islands. And secondly, the 2008 murder of Kareem Sebastian, where one individual is facing the local courts and his matter is expected to come up within the next criminal assizes. During 2013, we presented a number of cases related to homicides before the local courts and were successful in gaining convictions. The murder of Kerry Harrigan, which took place in March of 2011, 2 men were convicted for that murder. The March 2011 murder, conspiracy to murder, of Melbourne Francis, where 2 men were convicted for conspiracy to murder, and the 2012 murder of Kiwana Todd Reimer, where 1 male person was convicted for that murder. Notwithstanding the progress that we have made in the foregoing matters, I would restate the position that as far as the Royal Virgin Islands Police is concerned, the investigation into all unsolved homicides remain open, and therefore we are keen to hear from members of the community who may have any pertinent information relating to these matters. I therefore take this opportunity to make a public appeal for information that may assist in progressing any or all of these outstanding matters. The Commissioner would have spoken to our acquisition crimes, those of robberies, burglaries, and thefts. We would have had some successes in those areas, but there are still challenges for us. And with respect to robbery, I just want to draw to the attention of the national community that in 2013 we recorded 30 robberies versus 31 in 2012, and over 75% of these robberies were perpetrated against individuals as opposed to businesses. So I will take this opportunity here to put to the national community 1 or 2 suggestions for safeguarding oneself in this regard. If possible, don't walk alone during late night hours. Walk in groups whenever you can. As the old adage says, there is always safety in numbers. Stay in well-lit areas as much as possible. Avoid alleys, vacant lots, other shortcuts or secluded areas. These are usually not well lit or heavily traveled. Walk on sidewalks wherever possible. Walk close to the curb. Avoid doorways, bushes, and other potential hiding places. Always be aware of your surroundings. If you are wearing headphones, don't turn up the volume so high that you cannot hear outside noises. Report any suspicious activity or persons immediately to the police at our 311 number, or if it's an emergency, dial 911. Avoid carrying large sums of cash or displaying expensive jewelry, etc. in public. If you must carry large sums, divide the cash into smaller quantities and carry in multiple places on your person: wallet, purse, side pocket, etc. With regards to burglaries, we have witnessed a significant decrease in overall burglaries, as the Commissioner alluded to, and we are working internally to improve our internal structures. We have put together a working group within the organization to review our burglary strategy, and that group has a mandate to report back to the Deputy Commissioner of Police by February 15th as to where we are with that. And one point I would like to make around regarding the acquisition crime of theft is that we recorded some 432 thefts for 2013, and of that number, 55 were cell phone thefts. This means that we are seeing 1 in every 8 thefts involve a cell phone. This bit of information presents the opportunity for some target hardening. The question is, how do we make our phones unattractive to would-be thieves? How do we minimize the opportunities for the would-be thieves? We would recommend installing the tracking apps on your phone, recording your IME number, etc. We have had instances in 2013 where phones were traced and recovered using these facilities. Therefore, I would take this opportunity to urge members of the community to make greater use of these tracking features on their phones. And in wrapping up, to go back to where I began with the homicides and violent crimes, again, I repeat that we remain cognizant of the fact that there are unsolved homicides on our books, and we remain keen and committed in clearing up these unsolved homicides. And I take the opportunity once again to make a public appeal to members of the national community to come forth with whatever information that would assist this organization, this territory, in clearing up these unsolved homicides and ensuring that the BVI remains one of the safest territories in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. I'd now like to introduce Superintendent Stout, who head of our territorial policing division at the moment. Just wants to talk about the work we're doing within the community and neighbourhood policing.
Neighborhood policing, you want to ask yourself, what is neighborhood policing? And a definition that I've taken from one of the UK police forces is it's about assigning a dedicated officer to a certain policing district, working together with the community to identify and tackle issue of concern to that community. So we will be introducing this new initiative come Police Week. It will be a joint Police Week, which will be the 24th of the February 2014. Now you might ask yourself, what can you derive from this initiative? And it's important to note that it will increase visibility. So you see a police officer now in your district, both day and night. So the visibility will increase. Address their needs. So if there's a problem within the community, you have an officer available so you can make a complaint to that officer. Then you can build the trust and loyalty to that person. So seeing him every day, interacting with him, then you'll get more comfortable and you'll be able to speak with him when there's any problem. Gathering intelligence, that's another important aspect of it. So we will know exactly who's in the community, who's in there committing crime, and that's also important. So it's important to reduce crime and the fear of crime. So with the neighborhood police in the district will be important. Now we have identified the main areas, these hotspots. We have a number of hotspots, but because of the resources implication, we have to reduce it just to 7. So the hotspot we have is Main Street, Huntamgut and Lower Estate, Postle and Bargers Bay, Easton and Longlook, Weston and Carrot Bay, the Valley Virgin Gorda, and North South. So these are the areas. So we'll be introducing neighborhood policing come the 24th of February this year. Now the training should commence within the next few days. And with the introduction of the Police Week, After the introduction of the police, we will have meeting in the various districts to present the officer to the various districts. So that is coming on really well. These officers will also be receiving training in the school liaison program, so they will be able to, so it'll be a dual role, so they will deal with neighborhood policing plus school liaison officers. So they too will be in the school helping reduce some of the problem that currently exists in the school. So we are inviting the general public to the launching. It will be on the 24th of February this year, and to the subsequent meeting that we'll have in the various districts to introduce the officers. Once again, it's a very good initiative, and we definitely ask the public to support us. And this too should bear dividends for the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy. Now I'd like to pass on to Acting Superintendent Mr. Kendrick Headley to talk about the traffic issues, which I'm sure some of you are keen to hear about within the territory.
The Royal Virgin Islands Police Force is currently spearheading a joint task force on road usage. We believe that if we partner with our stakeholders such as DMV, Customs, the Ministry of Communication and Works, Police, Public Works Department, and various groups within the community, which would include the Departments of Youth Affairs and Sports Division, we can make recommendations which can aid in the reduction of traffic collisions and road fatalities in the territory. I've already spoken to Jason Rubain of the Youth and Sports Division, who is on board with us, and he's willing to assist. Quite recently, the Commissioner has spoken with the Rotary Club. I've done a radio segment with Teens Talk on our radio stations at BVI, encouraging young men and women who ride motor scooters to exercise good judgment, to always wear helmets and to follow the rules of the road as it relates to traffic. I've also done an interview recently with Philomena Roberts of Disaster Management on Road Safety, which is to be aired sometime this month end. The Royal Virgin Islands will be pushing safety as part of its education drive. Now, when we speak about traffic, we are looking at the 3 E's of traffic, which is education, engineering, and enforcement. The police primarily is responsible for the enforcement aspect of it. Quite recently, for our figures for last year, we have prosecuted, or we have placed approximately 517 complaints before the court for traffic violations in the territory. Of that 517 complaints, 328 has already been disposed. Now, when it comes to our traffic collisions, in 2011, we recorded 1,240 accidents. Of that amount, 38 included motorcycles. In 2012, there were 1,222. Of that amount, 44 was involving motorcycles. And just last year, 2013, 1,219. And of that amount, 37 were involving motorcycles. Now you'll see within the last 3 years, we have been steadily decreasing the amount of accidents, but they are still alarming, taking into consideration that we have over 15,000 vehicles registered in the territory, and these figures reported from 2014 from the DMV. And in terms of fatalities, we have recorded 1 fatality involving a motorcycle in 2011. That was Trey Erickson. And in 2012, we had another fatality with a scooter rider, and that was Brandon George. 2013, we recorded 2 fatal accidents. That was Pat Lexum, but she died in a motor car collision, and the other person was Javon Chapman, who died at the end of the year, followed by Mr. Malik Aaron on the 20th of January this year. So we have a concern for the accidents that have occurred recently, and on top of that, we had just on Sunday 2 tourists which suffered injuries in a collision, actually a one-vehicle motorcycle accident on Tread Falls Hill. So a lot of questions is being asked of what we are planning to do. Hence the spearheading of this group to address these concerns. Of those motorcycles that we have been hearing about, we have confiscated at least 13 within the last 2 years, motorcycles above the 500 cc's. And that's a lot to me. Why? Because these motorcycles are not permitted on our roads. They're not to be imported or to be used. We have been getting a lot of support from the community, and up to December last year, members of the public were able to assist us in recovering at least 5 of those 13. We have also seized a number of scooters. One of the challenges facing is around our legislation. I personally believe that the legislation that is currently on our books needs to be addressed. Currently, the fine for riding without a helmet is only $50. I believe that we can look at helping government to help us to achieve our goals in addressing the problems that we have. But we have to do it collectively. Thus, we are encouraging parents, schools, churches, and so forth to come on board and assist us to address this problem. There's a saying, speed thrills, but it also kills. And with the number of fatalities that we are having, especially with most of our youngsters, which is under the age of 25, we want to ask or appeal to members of the public to do more encouraging, stop, talk to them. And it's not only around motorcycles, it's about our law, obedience to our traffic legislation. It's about using of the seatbelt, wearing of the seatbelt actually. It's about the cell phone usage. It's about being courteous. It's about respecting our signs. And we have to also look at the conditions of our roads. Our roads are not in the best condition. Hence, it means that we need to pay more attention. We have to be more careful. We have to be more safety conscious. And if we all do this together, then hopefully we will continue to see the decrease of the amount of accidents that are currently occurring. And maybe we can, I would glad to see that for the remaining portion of 2014 that we do not have any more fatalities recorded. Thank you.
We're going to allow questions from the media. We want the questions basically to be restricted to what we've shared this morning. Certainly we're welcome to entertain other questions, but your panel is now prepared to share any more information that you feel you need to flesh out your stories in relation to the items that are shared. So I would ask that you just identify yourself and just ask the question.
Good morning, Zan Lewis, Rvipf Radio. Superintendent Charles? You made mention of the homicides and those unsolved murders. You gave a percentage also, which looks good, right? How many unsolved murders are there? And also, when you said that you'll be looking at them on the merit, what do you mean?
Yes, Dan, to take your question in increments. The first part, if I understand it, how many unsolved murders we have. It would be 18 from 2000, sorry, coming through to 2013. So that would be 18 out of the 50 that are not yet cleared up. The second part of your question, in terms of how you said that, okay, I now get it. We intend to deal with each individual case and its merits. We will, over the course of 2014, conduct a review of the cases. We will examine what new information is forthcoming regarding individual cases. We would be looking at the archived material that we have on hand. We'll do a re-examination of those archived materials. We will have a fresh look at suspects who would have been identified in individual cases, but because of the demands of the legal system, where we would not have had sufficient information to satisfy DPP to bring a case, we will be taking a fresh look at the activities of those suspects with a view to moving those matters forward. So that's why I say when we speak of treating with each case and its merit, each case would present different challenges, different opportunities. So we will deal with them individually.
You made mention of 18 cases outstanding, and you'll be looking through the various areas. You have identified suspects. Of these 18 cases, how many of these suspects would have been identified and you're working towards probably giving priority to? How many of these 18 suspects would have been identified?
I am not in a position at this stage to state that with any level of specificity.
Good morning, Gordon French, BVI Platinum. Commissioner, a couple of years ago, the BVI hired some UK officers, and one of the mandates they were given was to look at unsolved murders. Are you satisfied as Commissioner of Police that they have done their job?
Yes. In terms of the UK officers that came here, don't forget their remit wasn't to look at all unsolved murders. It was to look at a certain selection, predominantly around the 2008 mark, in regard to that. And that's what they did. What we recognise now with the advancements in forensic, some of the work we've already done, as Detective Superintendent Lexus Charles has said, we've got a trial coming up shortly involving one of the murders, that we have an opportunity to keep reviewing these unsolved murders. As Mr. Charles said, an unsolved murder doesn't mean to say we don't investigate it. It means that we continue to investigate it. What we're trying to put a lot of focus on this year, since at the present time, touch wood, we are, our homicides have diminished, that we have an opportunity to do that. Of course, when we look at unsolved murders and other unsolved crimes, it's always a bit of the urgent overtakes the importance because of the resourcing issues that we have here within the territory, and we have to manage our resources. So, but this year, as I've said, we particularly want to focus on our unsolved homicides. We've still got families of the victims who need to be kept informed and updated. As a result of a lot of the work we've done in upskilling our homicide detectives, I think we can actually start to move some of these things forward, and particularly with the work that we've been doing with the Director of Public Prosecutions.
With all due respect, sir, just trying to find out whether you're satisfied with the work that the UK officers have been doing.
Well, I think in terms of the reviews that were done, I think the question was I satisfied with the reviews that were done back in 2010? Yes, back in 2010, we were satisfied with the reviews. Right, don't forget, those officers aren't here now. I have one senior investigating officer, Mr. Nigel Niven, who's actually running the major crime investigation team for the murders that we've had recently, of which you just heard the clear-up rates around that. But what we have done is we've trained particularly another SIO within the force now, Detective Inspector Cardick, who's been away on his SIO course. We've trained a detective sergeants. We have a better skilled organisation that can actually do the reviews for us without having to bring in other people under the directorship of Mr. Niven. So to answer your question, yes, I was satisfied when I first came in 2010. I think we have an opportunity to move that on.
Sean Rose, JTV News. Commissioner, you've indicated that there's been a 14% reduction in reported crime. Is this an indication that the BVI is safer?
I think it's an indication that BVI is always safe. What we're saying is that we've seen a reduction in reported crime, and as a result of that, we could say that there is less crime in certain areas. As I mentioned earlier, our burglary dwelling, for example. We have seen a reduction in theft from motor vehicle. But we're still concerned in relation to violent crime, although our detections, have improved around that, particularly around the domestic violence, as I mentioned earlier. Burglary other than dwelling, which is our business burglaries. Again, concerns about businesses that don't secure their premises, don't have secure locks, vessels that leave chartered passengers leave laptops, iPads, cell phones lying around on their docks, those sort of areas. So, in terms of, I would suggest we've seen a reduction in crime or reported crime. We're still looking to reduce that crime this year. And certainly in terms of the British Virgin Islands being a safe place to visit, live and work, yes, it is.
Let's look a bit at crimes committed against yachties, basically in the marine sector. What are the figures?
In terms of the vessel burglaries, I can't give you the details of the figures to be exact at the moment, but we have had a spate in 2013. We had a number around some of the chartered areas. As a consequence, we've done some work with the charter companies. We are producing posters with the companies now about warning the chartered passengers, the visitors to the territory, about securing their property, particularly when they're moored out and gone for the evening to their restaurants or whatever. So that's the issue for us around that. It's not as great as other areas, but it is still a concern, particularly at this time of the season.
And if I may, with respect to resources from the Marine Police unit, how well equipped are they, and what other new initiatives you have planned to help to ensure that the yachties and other people in the marine sector are safe?
Yeah. Well, certainly in terms of the Marine unit, we've got 8 Marine officers. We could do more. We need more. We need more officers in every area of the business. As you heard the Deputy mention earlier, our demands are increasing as the British Virgin Islands becomes more of an international player in relation to summits, conferences, bringing heads of state here, heads of government, as well as all the other things that we deal with in terms of community events and things like that. And the demands that are placed upon us. We need increased neighbourhood officers, we need to increase our response, we need to increase our marine, our firearms capability, etc. But with the Marine unit, we've certainly been working a lot closer with the Customs now. We do joint patrols to increase our resilience and in terms of numbers, and in regard to working with the charter companies and the yachts and the patrols around the marine area. Again, certainly targeting some of our known offenders who are out and about.
Horace Mills, BVI News. One of the major problems seems to be human resource. What are the numbers in terms of officers in the force? What would be done to improve on that? And why? Why aren't we having more?
Right. Well, certainly we've done a review in the force of what we require. We recognise that our community wants more officers out there visible, and therefore our focus needs to be on increasing the constables. At the moment we have an establishment of 121 constables, a strength of 121 constables. Our establishment is 144. By reviewing the force, we can increase our establishment to 155 constables, which will give us a better presence out there in terms of the areas that you've already mentioned. We're looking to try and recruit 10 additional constables this year. Our plan has been to recruit 10 constables per year. We recruited 10 last year, 7 the year before, further 10 this year, which will take us up to just off the 144 that we require. I think it's 5 or 6 off that. The difficulties, we're waiting to see whether human resources will increase the establishment to 155 constables. The difficulty we face, as in every other area of public service at the moment, is funding. We haven't got the salaries for the officers to recruit the officers, and we're waiting for a decision from government to see whether they will give us the salaries to recruit the 10 vacancies that we require for this year.
Follow up, about how much money do you think it will need to hire 10 more constables per year?
I think in terms of the salaries, we're looking at just under half a million per year.
Kathy Richards, Virgin Islands News Online. Mr. Commissioner, you have alluded to the work that you're doing in terms of domestic violence. Domestic issues have surrounding other issues other than violence, one of which we can allude to, the most recent one of the missing child. How equipped is the police force to deal with issues of this nature?
Well, certainly, as I mentioned earlier, our specialist officers work within the family and juvenile unit. We've increased that unit. It now has 3 constables, a sergeant, and an inspector. As I mentioned earlier, we're putting in place a vulnerable victims interview suite with video recording, etc. The work around it is very important because, of course, you're talking about vulnerable victims here who are assaulted or abused because of their position within a relationship where domestic violence is concerned. And then when you talk about sexual offences, you're talking about offenders who are asserting power over victims. So it's not just your assault, it is about power relationships. Okay? So it does take specialist investigations. It takes work involving other agencies like Gender Affairs, like the Voluntary Sector Family Support Network, like Social Development. And all of us have seen an increase in that area of the business. You mentioned earlier the missing child, Walton, that came back from St. Thomas. That wasn't a domestic violence. That was a child who was reported missing by a mother, which we investigated as soon as it was reported to us. I think there's some misperceptions around the reporting of that article. As soon as it was reported to the police beginning of last week, a week before now, we treated it as a critical incident because we recognised the age of the child, the history behind that child, and as a consequence of that investigation undertaken by our major crime unit, because again we're back into it's a major crime for us because today's missing child is tomorrow's victim. And of course when we take our major crime detectives off other business, it impacts on what we're trying to do. And as a consequence of that, the intelligence, the work with our other agencies, particularly in the USVI, we found her very quickly and brought her back. But of course, it's not our job to look at the family issues. That's working in relationship with social development. So, that's their area of the business.
Okay, when the police force have an obligation to society, as you had commended persons for being very cooperative and in coming forward with information to report back to them, what were some of the intricacies involved in locating this child recently?
Well, certainly, I'm going to pass you over to Mr. James here, who led the Critical Incident Board at the time, and will give you any detail in relation to that specific case.
Yes, we were extremely grateful for the cooperation from the members of the public. The public was very helpful in the situation with the missing child, in that they provided a lot of information that helped us to quickly locate where the child was. Of course, we can't go into the details in respect of the child. There are certainly issues that would have caused a child of that age to run away from home. But that's down to the social development. Of course, the child will get all of the social attention, psychological evaluations, and that sort. She has returned to school, that much I can say, and being integrated back into her class. And the social development is looking after identifying a suitable home for her and addressing the other issues in respect of the family circle.
Sorry, to add to what you said, are we getting back to members of the community who have helped us? Yes, it's on a one-on-one. It's not for public knowledge. They certainly don't want their names out there, but yes, we do get back to the public, thank them for their information, and share whatever we can.
Just for the sake of assurance to persons who would have had a lot of concern about a child. It's a child, we do care. Was this child in a very compromising situation when she was found, or she was in a relatively safe environment when she was found by whoever did find her?
I don't think we can answer.
What I would say is that the child, from all appearances, is in good health. She wasn't finding any compromising position.
Mr. Commissioner, you outlined your achievements, and also, what are some of the problems the force going through as you go through your duties in investigations, arresting people? What sort of problems you have in this society, right? Because I know that some of the officers now are before the court for the way in which they're carrying out their investigations. Some people may not be in favor of it. I think 2 officers are before the court on this issue. Do you have problems in that area, enforcement? And secondly, there seem to be some persons in the police force also don't like you. They have you before the court in your operations, right? They don't like, they have taken certain things before the court with the Constitution. I think there are a few matters. You are being looked at, the only commissioner with being taken to court so many times by officers. How do you see this? Does this affect you? And how do you see these officers on these particular matters? And secondly, the power of arrest and how you go about your duties.
Well, I think, Zan, that was taking your convoluting question there. The first one is the Office of Commissioner, all right? You've got to remember that when claimants make claims against the RVIPF, it's the Office of Commissioner. It's not David Morris personally, okay? Although the press would like to make it that way. All right? And with any other claim, the Attorney General, who is responsible for the law and is responsible as the government's lawyer, it manages that area of the business. Okay? Does it affect me personally? No. It shows me that we are making changes in the organization. It shows me that we are setting standards. We are being transparent. We are being fair. We are setting a level that playing field that everybody needs to understand operates within the police force now. Okay? Regardless of your gender, your nationality, where you were born, what rank you are, or whatever. Okay? So I think that answered your first question. In terms of your second question, police officers are members of the public, citizens, just as anybody else is. And if we break the law, we're subject to the law. Don't forget, it's not us that prosecute people, it's the Director of Public Prosecutions. Our job is to investigate crime, investigate allegations, complaints, and put those investigations with the evidence to the Director of Public Prosecutions, who then makes a decision: is there sufficient evidence for a successful prosecution, and is it in the public interest? Okay? And if the Director of Public Prosecutions makes those decisions and says that we need to charge an officer, we charge an officer. All right? And then it's up to the court to decide whether that officer has overstepped their mark in terms of reasonable force, within the law, etc., or whether they've not. Okay? At the end of the day, as I said, the police service is subject to the law as any other service, any other member of the public. And that's the position that we're in.
All right, I'm going to have to entertain a question from Eric, and then we're really going to have to sum up, unfortunately, because as it says, the demands on police are great right now. We have to now have another meeting in here shortly in relation. No, I'm afraid we can't. One from Eric.
I'm Eric Voorhees from the Beacon. There was mention of the CCT cameras before. As far as I understand, they're operational, but they're still not being used. I think that's correct. Could you just give us an update on that and what needs to happen before they're...
Right. Yeah, certainly, as I said, we've got 16 cameras up at the moment.
That's correct, sir.
Yeah, we've just had the funding to put up additional cameras, came through yesterday, so we're going to put up another 24. And the Act, I've met with the Governor yesterday, and the Act will be proclaimed on the 1st of March.
What we have here for you is handout stats that were shared just a while. So we have that plus some brochures. We want to thank you very much for coming. Certainly, I'm sure all your questions are important questions. We will entertain them at another forum, but this can be the day. I want to thank you again for coming.